Hey there, so this video is going to be a summary of the second half of the book, Designing Your Life, because I have been making a series about this book, doing a video on every single chapter, and I've decided I actually can't be bothered to finish the whole series and do a video on all of the remaining chapters. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to summarise the second half of the book relatively quickly. There's still a lot of important stuff in it, but I kind of think that we need to move on from this series, despite it being an insanely helpful book. I slightly want to make different videos, so I'm just going to finish it off for anyone who's been following along with the series and is interested in this kind of stuff, and then we'll get back to some other content. So this is the contents of the book, and we got up to here, which is Designing Your Lives with Odyssey Plans. So we did the Odyssey Plans last time. That's kind of like coming up with these plans for the next 5 years of your life, 3 different options of what they might be. But the rest of the book is about actually putting all these things into action, actually engaging in life design. So the next thing they talk about is this idea of prototyping. So prototyping is basically where you test out these future lives that you come up with, or just future possibilities, whatever it might be. And there are 2 ways that you prototype. You prototype experiences and you have prototype conversations. So what those both mean are testing out what the future might look like, getting as much information as you can about the future job, about the future life that you're thinking about, by prototyping it and trying to get a little snippet of what it might be like in the future. Let's say you're considering getting into the medical world and being a doctor. A prototype experience might be volunteering for a hospital or for a care home or something like that, and or even getting work experience, getting paid work experience, and doing work in that field before you have to commit to joining that field, so that you know what it feels like and what the experience of it is like. A prototype conversation might look like speaking to someone several years ahead of you who's actually already living the life that you are considering for the future. And you want to ask them questions about what life is like in that position. What is the job like? What is your life like? What are the hours? What's the pay? Etc. That's a life design interview. That's what they call it in the book. And both of these things are ways of testing out a future life that you might want, so that you have a good idea of what things might be like in the future, so you can be more confident in the decisions that you make. So that is prototyping, and it is a sort of fundamental part of any design process, just testing things out before you actually have to commit and go all in on building the thing or design or creating the thing or whatever it is. So yeah, prototype your experiences and have prototype conversations. So the next chapter in this book is called How Not to Get a Job, and the reason that they include it in the book is because apparently 90% of Americans use the method of applying for jobs online to get a job, and that has around a 5% success rate. So 90% of people use a method that has around a 5% success rate to get a job. The reason that they don't like applying for jobs online is, apart from the fact that it has a low success rate, is because it can be a really frustrating process, and especially for bigger companies, the people normally creating the job descriptions and kind of doing the recruitment process aren't the ones actually involved in the job and don't really have an understanding of the job itself. And there's often lots of technology and software involved in kind of screening applications before they even reach a person of any kind. And because around 20% of all jobs available are posted online, so there's 80% of jobs never even make it to being a job posting online. And we will talk in the next chapter about how to get a job, how the actual best way to get a job. But if you are going to apply online, because obviously some jobs are online and you have to apply online, especially big corporate graduate jobs, which is what I had to do, you have to apply online, and there are ways to get better at that. So there's basically 2 things we want to think about when applying to jobs online, and they're both really simple. The first one is around keywords. So when big companies have job applications online, then they will often use software to screen the applications before they actually reach a person. And so the way that they use the software works is basically in the job description, what the job is actually going to be, they will include lots of keywords around what is required for that job. So it might be good communication, or maybe it's good video editing, or maybe it's strong mindset and things like that. So whatever the job description actually is, you want to include that as much as you can in your CV and your cover letter. You want to replicate the exact phrases that they use so that you show up in their automatic screening process. It's not very exciting, but if you can just replicate the job description in your application as much as possible without making it sound robotic and making it sound natural and still relatively authentic to you, then that will increase your chances of getting through. So the other thing you want to think about when applying for a job online is fit in before you stand out. So when a company makes a job description, they kind of want people to just hit that job description. They don't want someone to come at them with like loads of wild things that they could do, and if you present your CV as though all these different skills that you have and things that you've done in your past, it might just overcomplicate things. So you want to kind of get through that first stage of like software screening, and maybe even the first stage of the application process with like a video interview or with a real person, where you kind of basically just like tick all the basic boxes. So this obviously isn't a perfect process for every single job application online, because you know, you might be like a 10 person startup and you post a job online because you want a specific role. You want to stand out in that situation, but you still want to give the company what they need. So fitting into the job description, kind of like ticking all the fundamental boxes that they need, that they've written out in their job description, is a really sensible way of approaching it, and then trying to stand out once you have all those basics covered. So we're getting through this. The next chapter is called Designing Your Dream Job. So this is actually how to get the dream job that you want. And we're talking about dream jobs that are like, you know, your kind of maybe slightly more normal dream job. They're still dream jobs, but they're like not the kind of become a Justin Bieber singer or like Premier League football player, which would be what I want to do. They're kind of dream jobs of like the average person can aspire to. They're still like massive aspirations, but they are just not the kind of ridiculous anomalies that you might see, you know, on TV or in popular culture. Still dream big and, you know, shoot for the stars and all that. But basically, designing your dream job is about recognizing that the best jobs most of the time don't actually reach the internet, and they are kind of exist within the network of people in that job market or in that kind of, or in that industry. So this part follows on from the prototyping chapter. So through the prototype experiences and conversations, actually this is the best way to then get a sort of route into the job that you want to have. So even this applies even for like corporate graduate jobs that you might want to get at like McKinsey or you know, Goldman Sachs. If you can try and get some kind of in with the people who are involved in the recruiting process, i.e. like a spring week or a kind of some kind of event, or even one of those like pop-up tents at universities, all of those kind of things help, because you're actually building physical connections, and there's like a network involved with getting the job itself. So we can use the internet to make these connections and join this network. So you can use LinkedIn, you can use Google. We just don't want to be applying for like the majority of the jobs through the internet. We want to be reaching out to people, making connections, joining that space that we want to get into online. So I can speak to this a little bit, this whole designing your dream job thing, because I have recently got a new job working for a YouTuber called Ali Abdal, and it is more or less my dream job. I'm absolutely loving it, and it's a really amazing company. And the process that I actually went through to get it was very similar to this life design thing, this whole design thinking thing. And I was doing it somewhat consciously. But equally, some of it I was kind of like, didn't really know that was going on. I was just trusting the process, which is one of the kind of mindsets that we want to have when we're life designers. And so what happened was I kind of got into this YouTube thing, started making YouTube videos online because I was like being curious, I was trying stuff, and it kind of led me to quitting because I was like curious about all of this this world and everything. And then I took this Ali Abdal's YouTube course, and ended up kind of meeting the team through that, and meeting the team like in person. And then as a result, I met someone in the company who actually helped me through the application process for applying for the job, which was online. So it was an online job. I made an online application. So some great jobs do exist online, but the fact that I was actually speaking to someone at the company about how to like maximize my chances gave me a significantly increased chance of getting the job. So this design thinking approach really does work. And when you are curious, try stuff, meet people in the space that you're trying to get into, know it's a process, and kind of keep designing what you think your life might want to be, you will eventually get somewhere. Because now I've got a job that I really love, and I'm feeling super inspired by all the things that I'm doing in a way that I wasn't last year. And had I settled, I might not have found this. So last 3 chapters, gonna go through them pretty quickly. The first one is called Choosing Happiness. Choosing happiness is basically what it says on the tin, but the thing to recognize here is that whenever we go through our life, we can always make decisions either in favor or out of favor with happiness. So it depends, you know, how you want to approach your life. Some people don't value happiness as much as they do like contribution to society and things like that. But what they suggest in the book, choosing happiness. So whenever you're faced with a difficult decision about your life, about your job, about your career, we want to opt for happiness. That is what Bill and Dave encourage, and in the long run I think it is the right choice, because you know, life is a process. It's not about the outcome and all that, so you might as well be happy whilst you're living and all that good jazz. The next chapter is about failure immunity. So failure immunity is basically also what it says on the tin, being immune to failure, recognizing that failure is part of life. It is what makes us human. And if someone gave you a pill that removed all failure from your life, every failure that you've ever had, and that you'd never fail again, would you want that life? And the answer is no, for most people. And so recognizing that failure doesn't have to be something really personal or really related to your self-esteem and your self-worth. It can just be something that we know happens in life, and we can categorize it in 3 different ways. We can categorize a failure as a screw up, so that's something that we know we should be able to do or should normally do, but we just haven't done it because we've forgotten or we made a mistake. The next type of failure is just a weakness, so something actually that we are just worse at, and that no matter how hard we try, this type of thing might just be more difficult for us, and we might just fail more often. Like if I tried to be a really good singer, I would fail because I'm just not good at singing, and that kind of stuff. So we should generally try and avoid things that we are weaker at, and when we do fail at those things, just recognize that we're not so good at them and we don't want to pursue them anyway, and they're just things that we can like put to the side. And then the third type of failure, the most important, and probably most failures fall into this category, is growth opportunity. So any failure that happens, we can categorize it as a growth opportunity. We can learn from it. We can think about how we can avoid doing it again and how we can do better next time and all that kind of stuff. It's all related to the growth mindset instead of having a fixed mindset. There's a great book on that called Mindset by Carol Dweck, which I haven't read, but will do some point probably in the future. And yeah, about having a growth mindset and knowing that failure is part of life. The final chapter in this wonderful book is called Building a Team, because life design is a team sport. So people in our team are people like our friends, our family, our co-workers, and they are supposed to help us and be involved with our life design. We can ask them for help, for guidance, and for directions, and we also want to include in our team mentors. Okay, so mentors are people who are in a position of like experience and have maybe walked our path before, the path that we want to walk, and they could be like from afar. They could be mentors like, you know, authors or people online that you follow, just like people that you really respect and you want to emulate somehow. Or they could be mentors who are actually in your life. It could be like your boss or someone at work or whatever it is. People that just can help you do what you want to do because they've done something similar before. So that's it for this book, Designing Your Life, Building the Perfect Career Step by Step. It's an amazing book. I'd really highly recommend reading it, obviously, at this point. But there's 5 things that we spoke about in the very first video that I want to remind us of here. And they are being curious. So being curious about like the world and ourselves and what we can do and what we can learn. Trying stuff, so following our curiosities, actually doing, having a bias towards action is so important, and I am like learning that more and more every day. Trusting the process, so life design is a process. It never stops, it never finishes. There will be ups, there will be downs, just keep on going. Then it's reframe problems, so we often get stuck thinking about our lives in a certain way, like we have to get it right, we have to have a passion, we have to always know exactly what we want. These are all just problems that we give ourselves. We don't have to think like that. Those are beliefs that we have that are completely ungrounded and are actually really unhelpful. They are dysfunctional. We want to reframe them as things like we can design, we're constantly in a state of designing our perfect life, and there is no one perfect life. There are lots of lives that we could live. There are many different things that we could do that we would enjoy. And there are lots of different ways we can find meaning. It's a constant process working towards that. And yeah, it's just really important to reframe the way that you think. And one of the best ways to reframe the way you think is to read the book, because they have a lot of examples about reframing your thinking in there, some of which I've alluded to in previous videos. And then the final thing is to ask for help, because life design is a team sport and sometimes we don't know what to do. So we can ask our families, our friends, our therapists, our co-workers, whatever. You can ask people for help. So if you enjoyed it, then please drop a like or a comment or whatever. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.